it's your boy Luke, back for another Draftkings Showdown video. This time we've got Sunday Night Football between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. Sure to be one of the best Sunday Night Football games of the entire year. Two high-powered offenses going at it. Some huge Draftkings contests as well. And overall, really good opportunity for us to try and make some money. Overall, you have a lot of casuals that are entered these Sunday Night Showdown contests. A lot of people that don't put in the proper research. They're busy watching football for the entire day. So this will be a quick hitter video giving you the proper research you need to make your lineups for tonight. Nothing too long, nothing too short either. Just exactly what you need. So without further delay, let's hop right into the picks, starting off with the Kansas City Chiefs. So kicking this off, we're going to start off with a little injury report. So on the Ravens side of things, we have Marquise Brown, who's questionable. As of right now, we don't know whether he will be playing tonight. He was a limited participant on Friday, so something to keep an eye on right there. Same thing with Devin Duvernay, same exact situation, limited participant on Friday, going to be questionable. If both of them end up going down, we're going to have plenty of value options down low. I do expect at least one of them to play. Again, they're just questionable, not doubtful or anything like that. So both could end up playing, which would be a little bit, not ideal in terms of the value situation, but we'll get to that later on, and I'll be tweeting out any of the changes in terms of that injury report. In terms of other players on the Ravens that are injured, we have their left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, going to be questionable for tonight. We also have Jimmy Smith and Marlon Humphrey going to be questionable as well. They're number 1 and number 2 corners, some of the best corners, quite frankly, in the entire division. Marcus Peters is on that team as well. Typically have one of the best secondaries in all of football, but if you guys haven't caught already, Marcus Peters out for the year, tore his ACL. So they are bleeding on that defensive side of the ball. Right now, the over-under this game is 53.5 points. With Kansas City just favored by 3.5, which is completely nuts. I do not understand this line at all. On one side of the ball, you have a Super Bowl contending team, a team that made it the whole way there, lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and was steamrolling everyone. I mean, that offense last year was completely unstoppable. It seems like people forget about that just with a bad game against the Cleveland Browns in week 1. And to be honest with you guys, Cleveland's completely underrated, criminally underrated. They have a great defense. That offense has some decent pieces, and while they're not going to be flashy, that O-line can carry them with that running game. I mean, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. I'm worried about my Steelers in that division. So for them to be only 3.5 point favorites over a team that is decimated by injuries, a team that they beat last year handedly as well, I do not understand it. I do expect a decent game in terms of offensive firepower, but I expect Kansas City to control this game. So seeing that is completely ridiculous, and even more so ridiculous, the Chiefs have no injuries, none at all. They have a completely clean sheet. So drastic differences on both sides of the ball, so I don't necessarily understand that line. Getting into the Chiefs side of thing, though, I mean, it's extremely straightforward. It's going to be very easy to read this team week in and week out in terms of the stud options. It's a pass-heavy offense. Patrick Mahomes is going to be the man. You can see I have him there at number 2. He's just a little bit expensive. Doesn't really put up like 40-plus fantasy games either. Typically, there's 3 or 4 touchdowns, about 350 yards, which is great. That's a ceiling performance week in and week out. But on the other side of the ball, we have Lamar Jackson, who's capable of putting up nuclear performances. Speaking of nuclear performances, at number 1 we have Tyreek Hill, somebody who's also capable of doing that. We've seen him put up 200 plus yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns multiple times this year, and in week 1 against the Cleveland Browns, absolutely decimated them. If there was Showdown for that slate, which not many people play Showdown, at least for the 1 o'clock games, he would have been the optimal captain by far. So that's why he comes in there at number 1, can break a slate at just a few touches of the ball. And at number 3, we have Travis Kelce, the most consistent target on that team. He's $10,400. I don't hate going there. Very similar situation to Tyreek Hill, just a little bit less volatile. Is going to get enough touches where he can completely break the slate. So if he puts up like 12 catches, 150 yards, and a few touchdowns, you're absolutely going to have him. So that's why he comes in at number 3. On the Ravens side of things, though, it gets a little bit more interesting, right? So we have a lot of injuries on that side of the ball. We have a lot of running backs being inserted into the mix, and at number 1, though, it's very straightforward. We know it's Lamar Jackson. It's $11,800, which is a great price tag for Lamar, typically costing about $12,400, even $13,000 on these single game slates. But a lot of that has to do with the pricing on the Chiefs side of the ball. Obviously, all priced up, significantly more expensive than these Ravens targets. So tonight, the key to cashing, the key to taking down a GBP is going to be picking the correct Ravens. And one of them's a shoo-in. We know it's Lamar Jackson, but at number 2 and number 3 become a lot more interesting. At number 2, 2, we have Tyson Williams, who at $6,800 got a significant price decrease, but that's due to the insertion of Le'Veon Bell and Devonta Freeman into the offense. And nobody really knows the roles that these backs are going to play, but if we take a look at the snap count that we saw from the Ravens last time out, Tyson Williams was great. I mean, got plenty of touches, was very efficient with them as well, and that was in his first ever NFL action. So I actually expect that workload to increase. I think that Le'Veon Bell and Devonta Freeman aren't in game shape yet. They're just going to be on the roster in terms of depth. I think more than likely Latavius Murray may eat into that production, and frankly, I was wrong about Latavius Murray in week 1. I thought because he was in game shape, had been working with the Saints, that he would have gotten the workload, at least a bulk share of it there in week 1, but that ended up being Tyson Williams. So until that ends up changing, we need to live on that MO, right? They believe in the young kid. He was productive with those carries, so they don't necessarily have any reason to go away from him. And against this Chiefs team that doesn't have the best defense, they obviously are prolific on offense. Cleveland was able to run all over them, so I do expect Tyson Williams to have a few holes to run through. And number 3, we have Mark Andrews at $6,200. If Lamar Jackson's going to hit anyone in the red zone this week, especially if Marcus Brown is down, it is going to be Mark Andrews. He gets a ton of targets on this team, was recently made the number 2 highest paid tight end in the entire league behind Travis Kelce himself. Is paid even higher than Darren Waller, which, guys, that is nuts, right? Doesn't make any sense right there. But they're going to give him plenty of targets. He's a key part of this offense and is going to play every single snap. So that's why I like him at number 3. Even though Lamar Jackson's going to get a lot of his production with the run, Mark Andrews could still see a fair share of targets in this game. And now getting into the value plays for this slate, and to be honest, there aren't many options that I'm really confident in going to, but we do have a few. We are going to have to play a few in order to get all these studs into our lineup. So at number 3, we do have Harrison Butker. He's $3,800, and obviously as the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, you're going to have a lot of opportunity to score. We saw it last year. Harrison Butker was one of the best, if not the best, long kickers in the NFL, was routinely hitting 60-plus yard field goals. 50-plus yarders were essentially PATs for him, very accurate as well, so very clutch too. So if the game comes down to it, and you need a guy to go out there and win you your slate in terms of a GPP, Harrison Butker could be the guy. So only $3,800. I do like that price tag, and while he's not as cheap as some of the other options on this list, he certainly has a higher floor. At number 2, we have Byron Pringle, who's a wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. All the talk out of camp was that Pringle was going to take the number 2 job, be a huge key piece in this offense, a cog that goes out, catches like 1,000 yards, a few touchdowns, is a key piece in fantasy football, and he hasn't done that. Week 1 was essentially non-heard from, played a few snaps out there, but I do expect that to change at some point. Those beat reporters know what they're talking about. Obviously, Byron Pringle is a lot faster than Demarcus Robinson or somebody like Mecole Hardman, somebody who's more explosive. He's a lot younger as well, so I do expect him to gain up those ranks at some point. So he's only $1,200. You do have to take a little bit of a flyer on him, as he's not going to be getting a ton of snaps barring injury. But I do think he has that potential for a deep play. We see it every few weeks from him. Somebody who has that speed down the field. And anytime you're on the field with Patrick Mahomes, a big play could be coming. And at number 1, we have Devin Duvernay. So if Marquise Brown ends up not playing this game and Duvernay is active, I absolutely love him in this situation. He's only $2,200. He's a very good return man. We've seen him have return touchdowns in showdown slates before. But as a wide receiver, even more so explosive. He's going to get the ball in his hands in space. Going to get plenty of opportunity in a Ravens-led offense with Lamar Jackson. It's very dynamic to begin with. And again, he's questionable coming into this game, so we need to monitor his status, especially Marquise Brown ahead of him. If they both end up sitting, James Proche could be in line for some snaps, or even putting in a few 2 tight end sets with somebody like James Oliver. So a couple of names to keep an eye on there if they both end up being active. If Duvernay ends up not being active, Marquise Brown could be a good pick. Again, it wouldn't be a value pick there, but you'd have a much higher floor as a result. But now getting down to our captains, and again, these are very straightforward. Number 1 is going to be Lamar Jackson. There was a stat that I told you guys in the last Showdown slate that every single time Lamar Jackson was on a slate for Showdown, he has been the optimal captain. And that was broke last time. First game out this season against the Raiders, he did not have one of his best games, at least statistically. And that's crazy considering he had nearly 100 yards rushing, plenty of passing yards, and a few touchdowns. But we expect more from Lamar Jackson. I expect a bounce back here. Again, he was been now the captain, the optimal captain, like 90% plus of his showdown slates. And in a game, I expect them to be trailing. And a game, I expect the Kansas City defense, especially against the run, to not be very stout. Lamar Jackson could have a huge game, 100 plus rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, that kind of thing. So that's why he comes in at number 1. At number 2, we have Tyreek Hill, who's extremely expensive, $15,900, only $1,600 less than somebody like Lamar Jackson, but he has a nuclear floor. I mean, we've seen it before, 30 or 35 real fantasy points, which at the captain slot would be 50 plus points, pretty much unheard of. So always got to have him on a list at captain. And at number 3, we have Travis Kelce, so $15,600. I don't love the price tag, but if he wanted to go to someone like Patrick Mahomes, we'd be looking at over $18,000, $18,900, which is just too much money. We can't make a contending lineup with the rest of our slots with only $31,000 left. But Travis Kelce, just like Tyreek Hill, could have a great game. I definitely like Hill a lot more than Kelce because of the upside, but if you're looking for a floor, if you're playing a cash game, Travis Kelce could be the look at $15,600. That's all I've got for my Sunday night football picks, guys. Let me know in the comments who your favorite captain is for tonight's slate. Would love to hear about it. Let's get some debate down in the comments going. And as always, guys, I really appreciate you guys viewing the video. If you guys haven't liked and subscribed already, make sure you go ahead and do so. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have my Monday night football picks coming out for the Lions and the Packers game. So if you're looking forward to Monday Night Football, you want to get some research in for that as well, stay tuned for my video tomorrow morning. And until then, guys, have a good one. Good luck with your lineups today if you're entering the main slate. I do have a live stream coming out at 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for the Sunday slate. So if you're seeing this video before then, make sure to check that out. And I'll see you guys.